Andy Johnson. We are looking at some strategies to help students with severe reading disabilities. Sometimes this is known as dyslexia. I prefer the term severe reading disability. These are all terms that have been used. First of all, these are strategies to help students create meaning with print, not sounding out words, although there's some of this. There is a difference. This is what does not work. Programs that have a heavy emphasis on synthetic phonics. This is why you're putting words together to create things. There has been shown to be no transfer or little transfer to reading whole words in authentic context with these types of programs. Also, I have found no research to support these expensive commercial programs. If there was, I would be promoting these, but I have found no research. Oftentimes these will tout research in quotations, air quotes, but they are studies conducted by the programs themselves, by the curators or developers of the programs. They are not peer-reviewed research studies. What also does not work is eye training programs. There was research in the 50s and 60s showing that students with reading disabilities, dyslexia, their eye movements differ, but that was an effect, not a cause of a reading program. So what does work? First of all, know that students with severe reading disabilities, they can learn to read, but they are going to progress a little more slowly when compared to their peers. So just because the progression is a little more slowly, do not think that this is not working, because it does. These are some things that should be included in an intervention for students with severe reading disabilities. First of all, more intense instruction. It should be based on what they are doing in a general ed classroom. But more intensity means more time on task, meaning that they are actively engaged in activities that they can be successful at, which they can be successful. And more intensity means either individual or small group instruction. And for students with severe reading disabilities, individual or maybe at the most pairs works best. Large unit phonics or decoding by analogy. Here the focus is on letter patterns or word families. This enables the student to begin to see letter patterns and chunks versus individual letters. Now, students with severe reading disabilities do have problems processing certain types of information, the letter sounds and the squiggles. So yes, they need some phonics instruction, but we need to develop the other three cueing systems as well. Instruction, to the greatest extent possible, should be, by the way, we do a lot of word building activities. You see an example there, B plus add is bad. So they can begin to see letter patterns and word families right there. All right, instruction to the greatest extent possible should be use whole connected text versus seeing words in isolation or nonsense words. Now here's an example. You can see it. This is a hat, and they choose the letter there. Now I'm reinforcing letter sounds, but they see it in the context of a sentence with lots of repetition. I have found working with students with severe reading disabilities, they can identify words and sounds much easier in the context of a sentence. This is because they are using the other two cueing systems as well as just the phonological cueing system. Which leads me to the next point. Activities that you use must develop all three cueing systems. Now, in the past, students with severe reading disabilities were given a heavy dose of phonics because that was a deficit area. Okay, all well and good, as long as you are developing the semantic cueing system and the syntactic cueing system as well. Everyone believes that phonics is important, but not just synthetic phonics Large unit phonics, as we already talked about, seeing letter patterns and word families, and analytic phonics. That's seeing the word in the context of the sentence and analyzing them. For example, in this sentence, can you find a word that ends with the d sound? What's the middle sound you hear in this word? This is an example of analytic phonics. They are analyzing words in the context of a whole or meaningful sentence, meaning-based. Here are some examples of activities to develop the semantic cueing system, or semantic means meaning or context. We use a lot of close or maze activities. These consist of 2 to 8 sentences. It should last 2 to 8 minutes in duration, no more than 10. These are quickly paced. For example, in reinforcing the short A sound, I would have a series of sentences. I am glad to Notice there's a short A word in here. So it's a sense of metacognition. Does this make sense? And what sentence makes sense within the context? And the answer should be abundantly obvious here. That's an example of a close used to develop the semantic cueing system. And the same thing, this is a maze where they have 2 or 3 word choices. He had a day at school, and the student can read this individually, or I sometimes use scaffolded oral reading. They have to choose the correct one. And as you are watching their eyes and hearing the students, you see a lot of metacognition. Does this make sense? And that's a good thing. And I have usually 6 to 8 of these. These takes 2 to 8 minutes in duration at the very most, one of many activities. None of these strategies should be used in isolation. They should all be used in the context of this. Now, examples of activities to develop the syntactic cueing system, that means grammar or word order. A variety of writing activities. Now, the language experience approach, where they tell you about something. What did you do yesterday, Sam? Sam tells you, you write it down, and then you practice. And this is exactly what I'm doing here. Language experience, and we're using the computer. Sentence mix-up is a type of writing. You have a sentence strip. The cat ran away. You clip them into individual words, and they have to arrange them so that they make sense. Now here I am, I'm reinforcing the short A sound. I like to use PowerPoint. They see it in mixed up, and I said, well, tell me when you know what the sentence is. Do you know it yet? Do you know it now? And usually at this point, after we've been doing it for a while, they can figure out what the sentence is. And again, we are focusing on grammar and word order. Predictable writing is great with the emergent level. I like to blank, and the student fills in what they like to do. If they are severely struggling, I might write that in for them. Sometimes I have them draw a picture right next to the thing so we can reread until fluent, and then practice reading these on subsequent days. And again, it's a lot of repetition, words that they have written. They can't help but be successful at this. And we are reinforcing reinforcing letter-sound relationships, developing neural pathways, and expanding neural networks to help them create meaning with print. By the way, they already know how to read, these students with severe reading disabilities. They just cannot read very well. They know that you put letters together and these make words. They know that. They just are not very good at reading. So we need to develop activities to help them. Syntax sentences. Again, another short activity, 2 to 6 minutes. We have sentences in which there is either a grammar or a word order error, and they have to figure out what it is and make the correction. Now they can do this on a board, on a smart board, on a piece of paper, or in their journal. You decide how this works best. Sentence combining is another one that focuses on grammar. 2 sentences, they have to put them together and retain the meaning of both. Pam is strong, Pam is a soccer player. Pam is a strong soccer player, Pam the soccer player is strong. All right, that's an example of the sentence combining. Again, short activity, I would say no more than 2 of these a day. 2 to 6 minutes at the very most. And notice with the word Pam, I am reinforcing the short A sound. These are all taken from my short A module. Sentence alteration. Say the same thing using different words or different word order. And just by including a short A word, glass, again, I'm reinforcing the short A sound. I see how many different ways they can say it. Now, you can do this two ways. Students can actually write. They can work in pairs. They can tell you and you write, or they can simply do it orally. Adopt and adapt all of these. There should be short bits of writing that occurs every day. 2 to 8 minutes does not need to be long. It can simply be one sentence. What do you want to say today? Students who have severe reading disabilities often struggle to write. They can be overwhelmed. So it is okay if they write one sentence in a journal or in a Word document, an online book of some sort. Students need a variety of good books, and I stress good, at the independent level or below to practice reading. How can you get better at anything if you don't practice? Could you learn to play the piano if you don't practice? So you need good material, high-low books or very low books, and I recommend this publisher, High Noon Books. These are books that are of high interest but low readability level. This one right here is at the first grade level. There's a lot of pictures there, and these are second and third grade level for students in grades 3 to, I would say, all the way up to middle school or even high school. Good books here. And they have some written for emergent and first grade readers as well. But these should be at their independent level, where they can read it without any help. They recognize at least 98% of the words without struggling, or below. They should not struggle at all. This is reading practice. Black Rabbit Books is another publisher that has a lot of good high-low books or very low books. They tend to focus on expository or informational books, but two good publishers here. They should have daily practice now reading at the instructional level. This is the level they can read with your help using scaffolded oral reading. Here I am there, which is a variation of the neurological impress method. Choral reading, where you read it together, or echo reading, where you read the sentence and they echo it back. These are all examples of how you create a scaffold to enable the student to read successfully at the instructional level. Daily intense instruction. It should be briskly paced, and it should be a series of short activities, 2 to 8 minutes, but you need to pause and process between activities, because we can focus only for, students can focus for about 2 to 8 minutes in duration, and they need to pause, and the pause could be something as simple as, what do you think of that? Was that your favorite part? Did you like that? What do you think we're doing next? Just a simple pause before you get to the next activity. And I find it helpful to end every session with a game of some sort, to have some positive thing to look forward to at the end of the intervention session. How long should it last? Anywhere from 12 minutes to no more than 30 minutes a day. Now remember, an intervention is built upon or in addition to the regular daily reading instruction. You must attend to the affect, the emotions, and the motivation of students with severe reading disabilities. Often they feel frustrated and humiliated, especially the older ones, because they've failed in a very public way for 6 hours a day. Instruction must be within the zone of proximal development, meaning that don't get too far ahead of these students, and beg the homeroom teacher to cut down on homework. Developing the reading skills should be the #1 task with students with a severe reading disability, because, you know, everything else depends on the ability to read. These are some strategies to use in conjunction. No single strategy should be used in isolation, but used together, they create a very effective research-based intervention for students with severe reading disabilities.